Welcome back, everybody. IAmAMusicNerd here, back with another album review. This time I'm going to be talking about Tyler the Creator's latest album, Call Me If You Get Lost. Now, I was kind of expecting a new Tyler the Creator project this year. He seems to be doing a 2-year cycle between his projects. Igor coming out 2 years ago in 2019. The only thing I did not expect is what the album was going to sound like. And, coming off of Igor, which is probably the most different project that Tyler has ever done. I mean, it's literally like an R&B funk project, and that got him great critical and commercial success. It brought him to mainstream exposure. He was on magazine covers. He won a Grammy, had a #1 album. Sorry, DJ Khaled. As he mentions also in this album, he sold out Madison Square Garden. So Tyler, he's had a successful past 2 years, and I was kind of thinking, okay, is he going to continue in this direction of Igor? Is he going to continue to abandon hip-hop like Childish Gambino did in a way, and he's just going to be just singing in this lane? Or was he going to go back to rapping and back to basics? And in a sense, yes and no. When you listen to this album, you kind of got all the eras of Tyler: the Goblin era Tyler, the Wolf era Tyler, Cherry Bomb, Flower Boy, and of course Igor. And so it's kind of like a conglomeration of all of his eras into one album, which is pretty nice. And so this is probably his most sonically diverse, his most ambitious album yet. He just tackles all different genres, and it's really amazing to see the evolution of Tyler. Now, like I said in previous videos, I was not a Tyler the Creator fan in the beginning. I did not like Goblin when it came out. Early Odd Future stuff, I wasn't really into them like that. It really didn't click to me until Flower Boy. So I came in real late to the party, and I thought Flower Boy blew me away. And then of course Igor came, and that one is my favorite Tyler project. So the expectations were high. And while this album is, not as good as Igor and Flower Boy, you can say that it does meet up to those standards a bit. There are some songs here that I'm going to be playing for a very long time. And you have to respect Tyler, regardless of what you think about his sound. Like, he switches it up every single time. And he certainly did that with this album. The album starts with the song Sur Baudelaire. I think he was named, I think he's a French poet or something like that. First thing I hear, DJ Drama, the legendary DJ Drama. And it seems to be a kind of I don't know what it is, but in the past couple years, I've heard rappers kind of going back to that mixtape shout-out sound, back in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, those early mixtapes. Vince Staples kind of did on his album, but FM, harkening back to having, Big Boy and having those like weird ad-libs and shout-outs throughout the song. When those days when you pirated the music and you kind of had those like DJs just kind of like do those shout-outs like, this is DJ Ketchup here, we bring it out here live, DJ Ketchup. Some shit like that. And then you hear the sample, and I'm like, this sounds very familiar. And it's the West Side Gun Michael Irvin sample, just right away, just on this rapping shit. And he's taking on this new character, Baudelaire, I guess. And that's gonna be the character that he portrays throughout this album. This Baudelaire character is a person who, I guess likes expensive taste. He likes to travel. But, the main theme is that he is falling in love with a girl who is in another relationship, which, it just seems to be Tyler just can't catch a break, you know what I mean? Like, the past couple of albums, he's just always on the other side of the fence, just trying to be in love and trying to be committed, and he just can never get that perfect person to fall in love back with him, and just like, damn, he's gonna have to suffer through this again. Great opener to this album. Love the DJ Drama drop, and he appears in this album. Also, like I mentioned, the whole mixtape thing. Kendrick Lamar did the same thing too on Damn. So I don't know what it is, but are they trying to bring that back? Is this like a satire? I have no idea what they're doing to this, but I'm fine with that. But let's go to The other song that I liked, Lumberjack, which was the teaser single to this album. The first thing that I get is that, okay, Tyler is going back to his kind of bastard goblin era. You know, the sample, which with Gravediggers, you know, the group that, you know, RZA was with back in the 90s, kind of like that horrorcore. And you can obviously tell that Gravediggers was a huge influence on early Odd Future, early Tyler projects. So yeah, Tyler's going back, you know, on this song Lumberjack, just going back to his old sound a little bit, that boom bap sound. And he's in top form, you know, just bragging a little bit, and you know, just the witty lines and all that stuff. And the video's dope as well. And so, you know, Tyler just kind of letting people know that, hey, you know, Igor was a nice detour, but I'm back to show you why I'm a great spitter. And then you have songs like Wusyaname, which is the song before it, and it kind of gives me some Cherry Bomb vibes a little bit. You know, you have Young Boy Never Broke Again on this track, and Ty Dolla $ign singing on the track. Yeah, it's a very sweet sounding song, but you know, Tyler, you know, kind of his ironic spin on it. But no, in this song he's trying to impress this girl, you know, this beautiful girl, and he's just asking her, what's your name, you know, how are you doing, just trying to brag to her. And you know, he's just kind of like flaunting his stuff to this girl, and then he finds out that this girl is in a relationship. So this sets up the theme of the album, you know, him trying to go after this girl, and you know, just Tyler just kind of being Tyler, you know. I love the instrumentation of this song, you know, like I said, it harkens back to the era of Cherry Bomb, you know, kind of mixing just, you know, Tyler's quirky sensibilities, but with this like pleasant sounding R&B music in the background. Let's talk about the best verse on this album, the best guest verse on this album, Hot Wind Blows. You know, it's kind of like this very, you know, jazzy, Tyler does this thing of course, and then who pops up? Fucking Wheezy, you know, Lil Wayne. And with this, you know, Lil Wayne and Tyler just make a great team, and Lil Wayne's been killing it on guest verses lately. You know, he was great on the Jack Harlow What's Poppin' remix, but you know, Lil Wayne's always been a underrated kind of guest verse guy, and on the past Tyler projects, you know, he was on Smuckers and he killed that, and then he was on the Droppin' Seeds, even though that song was only 30 seconds, he killed that feature. And he comes on this album and over this jazzy instrumental, which Lil Wayne doesn't hop on this type of instrumentation often. I don't think he's ever been on this type of instrumentation, so it was very interesting. How is Lil Wayne gonna do this? And he killed it. And I'm like, yo, this is dope. I mean, Lil Wayne over some like jazzy beat in the background, and he's killing it. It's a different type of flow, and it's just great to hear Lil Wayne back in top form, and you know, just Tyler and Wheezy, just like a great combination on this song. I pleasantly enjoyed this song, one of my favorites on the album. But then the album kind of takes a little bit of a turn, you know. Tyler gets a little bit more serious in his next song called Massa. As we all know, the term massa coming from slavery, kind of talking about being a black man in a white space, and you know, talking about how things haven't really changed much for black people. And he kind of addresses this the same on Manifesto, which I think is one of the best tracks on this album, and really a type of mode that you don't really see Tyler in a little bit. And you know, while he's talking about, you know, the contradictions within himself, you know, he has been more outspoken about Black Lives Matter, and you know, his Grammy speech was kind of him, you know, talking about, you know, people boxing him in a certain space, and how Igor should have been in the pop category and not the rap category. He said that he didn't want to be urban, he wanted to fight labels. But giving Tyler's history, you know, with the homophobic slurs that he did on previous albums, and you know, him, where he's not speaking for the gay community, should he be more vocal in the black community, even though he doesn't really consider himself to be, you know, black per se. You know, he has a line where he says, I don't wear dreadlocks, but you know, I'm still a nigga or something like that. And you know, so he's kind of questioning himself. He's also talking about donating to Black Lives Matter charities, and then he talks about buying a necklace or bragging about how much money he got. So It's a very interesting track. I think those two are very interesting tracks. You know, Tyler being reflective of his character and his identity and where he stands in the mainstream, because now that he's kind of like, you know, he's no longer just an indie darling anymore. You know, he, in a way, you know, he's 30 years old. He's more mature, and I'm sure for a lot of kids, they look up to him. And he even says in the song, like, listen, I know I'm not perfect, but I got one message for you: just be yourself, you know. And that's the true, you know, that's what freedom really is about. And so, yeah, very interesting track. Love the beat on this thing. But Tyler, he wouldn't have made a track like this 5 years ago, even 10 years ago. You know, this is the type of thing where Tyler kind of questions, you know, how much he should be responsible for what he said in the past. I think on another song, he was like, I apologize for saying the word bitch. I ain't like saying that word. So it's interesting, the path that Tyler's taken. But then the album, once again, just takes a 180, and you go from this serious track to this lovey-dovey R&B track, this kind of 2-song track called Sweet / I Thought You Wanted to Dance, which is by far the longest song on the album. It's almost 10 minutes. And this song alone is just a weird adventure. You know, it starts out kind of like an Igor-esque R&B track, you know, saying, you know, you're sweet like sugar, which kind of harkens back to the Igor thing, where it's like, you know, was it that line on A Boy Is a Gun, like the diabetic line? You all know what I'm talking about. But I thought it was very interesting that it kind of had that mirroring of him saying this to this guy on Igor, and then saying it to this girl on this album. And then, you know, it just takes different lanes, and it's very interesting where, you know, it kind of delves into this kind of like lounge R&B song, a sound that I haven't heard in a Tyler album before. And so you're wondering, where the hell is this thing going? And then like you have singers on there, and then you have Tyler coming back at the end. So it was a very interesting, there's some parts of it that I liked, there's some parts of it that I didn't like. Maybe it went out a little bit too long. Interesting song for Tyler, just kind of like him doing his version of a yacht rock song. But you still have the very synth heavy stuff that you heard on Igor as well. But yeah, I thought it was a very fascinating track. But then you have some interesting interludes on this album. You know, they have Bless, which, you know, Tyler's just bragging again, saying like, hey, you know, golf wings selling out, you know, I'm happy for my success and all that stuff. And then it just all of a sudden just transitions into Juggernaut, and that shit is a banger. You know, like those speakers really got it. It just came out of nowhere, featuring Lil Uzi Vert and Pharrell, which obviously we know Pharrell is a huge influence on Tyler, and yeah, this definitely sounds like a Pharrell type beat. But man, the trap, it's interesting how Tyler, you know, he doesn't really do the trappy sound often, but you know, he did his own version of a trap song. And of course Lil Uzi Vert, who, you know, I'm hot and cold on Lil Uzi Vert, but I thought that he fit in very well on this. You know, Tyler has a great way, similar to Kanye, where, you know, he collaborates with somebody and you're kind of like, how is this gonna sound? Is this gonna sound right? That was like the last one with Playboy Carti, and he found a way to make Playboy Carti sound pleasing to me, and he did the same thing with Lil Uzi Vert on here. This beat is just phenomenal. One of my favorite tracks on this album. And then it goes to Wilshire, which kind of ends the theme of this album, where Tyler is kind of accepting that he's never gonna have this, you know, relationship that is platonic, advance anything past that. You know, he's kind of like being mature. You know, in the past, Tyler would have been like pissed off, and he would have been like, you know, fucking come here, I want you so bad, and like he probably would have killed the other guy and like kidnapped the girl, some crazy shit like that. But this new mature Tyler is kind of like saying, you know what, I'm gonna let it go. Like, I don't want to lose anything that's special. I mean, I still have feelings for you, but I'm not gonna step over the line. You know, we're gonna be friends. But Tyler's still being Tyler, saying like, if he hits you or something like that, I'm gonna get him killed. So Tyler is basically, and I like this song as well. It's not one of the longest songs on the album, but I like how Tyler is telling a story here, and basically just kind of saying that, you know, it's kind of his version of, you can't always get what you want. You listen to the song, I'm like, Tyler needs a hug. And then it ends with the song Safari, which also kind of ties in the travel theme throughout this album. Tyler playing a safari, an adventure, and of course the album cover is his passport, which is, if you don't know, an allusion to the ODB cover on his first album, was a Return of the 36 Chambers, the 30 version. So I like the tribute to that, but using the passport saying like, I'm gonna continue to advance my worldliness, it kind of mirrors how we're all gonna be traveling again. We got through the pandemic. I mean, there's a couple of pandemic stuff on this album, and it's kind of him saying like, hey, we're back, we can travel again, we can be normal again. And it's kind of like Tyler himself, like refreshing himself, saying like, I'm gonna continue to do what I want, and it is what it is. So that's the album, Call Me If You Get Lost. It doesn't quite have the emotional resonance like Flower Boy, and it doesn't quite have the flawless experimentation of Igor and the storytelling of that, but I think Call Me If You Get Lost is another solid Tyler project. Tyler keeps finding ways to stay true to himself. Now, he definitely experiments with different genres, and he's definitely a little bit more polished. The production, once again, is phenomenal, but still, it's just Tyler being Tyler. And with this album, he's experimenting with house, with trap, with jazz, with a little bit of like psychedelia, like all these different things that I haven't heard in a Tyler album before. And it's Tyler also going back to his old self. He's rapping a little bit more. So for those of you who maybe weren't a fan of Igor and missed the old Tyler rapping, you're gonna get this on this album as well. Like I said, it's kind of like a flashpoint of all these different Tylers on this one album, but still, it's kind of a new, refreshing era for Tyler. I'm definitely gonna be listening to this a lot more, but I think to close it out, Tyler has carved a very niche space in hip hop, and he did it without having to sell out. Igor, he could have easily just made another Igor, because that he had a whole new audience, and he got probably the most play on the mainstream that he's ever. I mean, the man performed at the Grammys, for goodness sakes. So he could have easily just said, I'm just gonna continue to make these pop R&B music, but he was like, no, like, I'm gonna continue to experiment, I'm gonna continue to evolve, and I'm gonna continue to be who I am. And I think that's really what I got from this album. Tyler is still at the top of his game. But tell me what you think in the comment section below. Did you like this album? Did you hate this album? YouTube recommends these two videos to check out after this one. Love you guys. Till next time. Peace.